starting it at 15:38. So I wonder how to do this most effectively. Well, there's
Should we
the
start with corruption?
last.
Yeah, are we going into the corruption part?
There's the last point as concerning the taxes. It's from links. We've moved it yesterday to the taxes program. It's about the generic tax on all containers traveling oceans. I'm not sure if it's not too specific for the whole taxes program. I would like maybe cross it. What do you think,
Or
Magnus?
let it to
Yeah.
the working group.
I would say it's too specific, and I just want to kind of comment on this that in Sweden we don't have anything in our local program regarding taxes because it's a little bit too touchy. Because we are both on the left and the right of the scale of where the taxes should go and used. So I think it's definitely too detailed. I think it's,
for our program too. We don't have C and we don't have enough program anything like
you
this.
don't have any C.
Yes. Of course, with fisheries we are kind of okay if the main principles are okay, but tax on containers in the oceans.
Yes.
Nope.
We should condense it to general issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's it for taxes. If no one else has something to add,
No.
we can then move to transportation. That might be short, maybe. There are 3 points suggested by the working group: energetic laziness, about walking rather than driving, and
It's pretty logical, this one.
Energetic laziness.
Okay, I'll read it. Save energy. Where you can walk to, you shouldn't drive. Where you can drive together, you shouldn't ride solo. Bikes and cars to access train stations, trains for domestic transport inside EU, planes to reach overseas destinations. Sharing is caring. Our priorities are reliability and adequacy. We support innovative solutions like autonomous truck trains, smart roads and parking lots, freight trams and modular buses
Marcel,
where appropriate. Cedric? Thank you.
No, Marcel.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't care.
Everyone.
Okay, so I really have a problem with trains for domestic transport inside EU. I just as a coincidence, I were in Graz in a gathering of a meeting what's it called European Ideas Labs of the organized by the European Greens and the Greens / EFA. And I noticed one of these ideas were like move people from the planes to the trains. I have personally traveled from Brno to Brussels by train, and I never want to repeat that.
Can you then move Marcel
So
under
the
the
general
energetic
idea
laziness,
of
because I think these two are
like
connected.
moving people to trains where it's reachable on the land and you don't really have to go by plane is, I don't think, a realistic goal, because even inside Europe there are distances that you really want to travel by plane.
Yeah.
Cedric and Alex? No? Okay, so Alex.
The issue is short distance flights, yes, and I think there are possibility to avoid short distance flights when you have a good train connection. But in general, you're right. We have to think about the sustainability of flying, yes. But this is another point. Yes, also mentioned yesterday. There could be solutions for that. But now in the transportation action, okay, we will discuss this. I think it's a little bit too less or perhaps too much, too detailed. Yes, what is it's about a general point on public transport. Yes. Because I think we have in Germany adopted this point of ticketless public transport, which is discussed. We have examples all over Europe. So think about the point to make public transport more effective and easy to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is someone taking the minutes? Oh, yeah, sorry, we don't have Antigone, I'm not sure. Magnus? Maria?
Yeah,
Then Cedric.
I guess it's more reasonable when you're in a small country. Sweden is, if you turn Sweden upside down, it comes down all the way to the end of Italy. So it's not really reasonable to say that you should go by train wherever you go in Sweden, because we do have trains everywhere in Sweden, so it's okay. But it takes 14 hours to get from the end to end, so that's not doable. Even crossing Sweden with our fast train is 3.5 hours, which isn't always going when you want to. And on top of that, it's sometimes, or most of the times, more expensive than taking a plane, which is kind of weird, but that is how it is. So I would say that within reason, yes, of course, use trains, but don't make it a rule that always use train when you can, because it's not always practical.
Maria?
I was actually going a little bit in the same direction of something that he said, is that it's very often planes are more cheaper than train. I mean, of course, in many places I would prefer to go by train, but it's just I cannot afford train, basically. So sometimes plane is like 50 euros and train is like 150 or something. And I think this is a general problem of public transportation. You want to promote public transportation, but in many cases it's much more expensive than just taking your car. And I think maybe it would make sense perhaps to promote public transportation by lowering the price of public transportation. Then you would naturally facilitate that people wanting to take the train would take it because it would be cheaper than going by plane, basically, whenever possible.
When price is an issue, you should naturally lean towards train instead of airplanes, like you said.
Okay, Cedric?
My point was about we are thinking about transportation like it was mandatory, but there is a lot of transport done because of work every day, and there is a possibility to promote remote working instead of having big buildings to welcome a lot of people that can do their work at home, at ease, in in a better environment. Uh, Promote this kind of things is in fact health saving and energy saving.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you want to move people, you can have also. I don't have a translation for this French words. We call them tiers-lieux in fact, like this kind of
Co-working space, maybe.
yes, that you can share between companies, between people, to not be at home. That can be for some people alienating also.
Marcel?
Yeah, so I didn't want to attract that, but as it has been said, I'm a little skeptical to this actually, because it's commuting to work, basically. I'm not really sure if it's like a European politics topic, really, and co-working, of course, has also like some inherent issues, like employees deal with confidential information, like there are some issues with that. But what I wanted to say, and I forgot in the meantime. Sorry, skip me.
Okay, anyone else wants to comment on this point?
I said skip, not end the topic.
Muriel?
Well, I think maybe you could do something in, promoting that people could work remotely, even within, even if you talk only about the workers of the, the people, civil servants of the EU, let's say, you could be more flexible in allowing them to be somewhere in their countries and maybe working remotely and not having to go all in some, I don't know, Brussels or whatever. That would be maybe a way to set an example, maybe for other administrations and maybe for also some companies. And even if you don't have a very strong, I don't know, law, enforcing it or something, but definitely you could do something at in an internal organization level.
Marcel?
Yeah. So before I forget, I am green actually.
What? Get out!
The truth was revealed.
Goodbye. No, what I mean is like I'm green. Many pirates are kind of like green. We're not just green politicians. I personally do not like green politics because I think that they take many issues from the wrong end, and transportation is quite a like one of the things that the green perspective can affect a lot. So my perspective on that, as someone who wants to be friendly to the environment, is if planes are indirectly subsidized by not have to pay taxes for fuel, that's really bad. It should be actually the other way around. It can be done a factual research on how much harm to the environment flying by planes does. And that should be actually included into taxes that all these companies that do flying over Europe or over continents do. And it should be included then in the price of flying. Because if going by train is more environmental friendly than going by plane, I can see no reason why going by plane should be cheaper than going by train. And why I say I don't like green politics, because green politics is usually about subsidizing what is environmental friendly. What I would suggest here is more like taxing and put concessions or anything that you have to pay money for actually devastating the planet by using the resources. So if going by plane is not environmental friendly, it should be more expensive than going by train, which in fact would have a positive feedback on going by train, and going by train would become cheaper than it is today because more people would go by train. Just that.
Yeah, makes
I'll
sense.
leave it
Magnus?
there.
Yeah. Once again, I think that we need to move a bit upwards, not talk about really trains or planes as in this moment, but rather talk about. I mean, the topic is energy laziness, so let's talk about energy in the sense that which kind of fuel are we using and what kind of harm does it do to the environment. So, for instance, that we can, if we are adopting the idea of taxing more harmful ways of transportation, then we can say that okay, the more fossil fuels that are used for this type of transportation, then we're gonna more put some sort of tax on that instead of saying that okay, planes specifically we're gonna put tax on, because that's what's happening in Sweden right now. The Greens in Sweden are actually proposing a tax for flying. The only fun part is that that taxation can only be done within Sweden. So any flights going outside of Sweden
Right.
isn't taxed. So it's like, okay, you missed the point, dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it's good that we can tax the ones that goes inside Sweden, but often, like I said before, going inside Sweden with planes because it's not practical to go by train. So
Yeah.
you're gonna hurt the people that actually needs to be flying instead of actually aiming for the problem.
So Stockholm to Göteborg would be more expensive than Stockholm to Oslo.
Definitely. And then you can take the bus from Oslo to Gothenburg. Perhaps.
The author of the text is writing something in a response to Marcel right now, but he's still writing, so we'll read it after he's finished. He agrees with you. So good. So maybe I suggest we go to the next point slowly and wait what Honza has to say.
Who's that?
Jan Lichko.
Hello, yeah.
I think he's only in the pad, but
Okay.
okay, so keep it silly simple. European transport rules are full of exceptions. Competitive salary and working conditions for all professional drivers across the continent, for example, truck driving ban harmonization or single market for locomotives and trams. Also, there should be just one easy-to-use toll satellite system, allowing the use of open-source apps, processing anonymized big data for road traffic optimization. All transport modes should be made equal in legal perspective, have transparent system of subsidies, and their cost should reflect all applicable externalities. Shifting goods around Europe just for tax optimization is a crime against logic and environment.
I guess this would be not a problem if we harmonize taxes, right?
I think there is a huge discussion ongoing. How should be the drivers of trucks crossing the continent taxed, and what should be their like social support? Because well, they are often coming from the eastern countries to the west, working for lower salaries comparing to the local drivers. Well,
Yeah, if I may jump in Sweden we have a lot of this, since we do have quite some long distances to travel, and normally a truck driver is allowed their inbound trip and then the outbound trip again. But of course, this isn't checked anywhere. So they can stay in Sweden for weeks, going up and down. And of course, our local transporters isn't really happy with this. Um, so I think in a sense it's good to harmonize transportation and see it more as a generic kind of service rather than saying that if you come from this country you have these salaries and so on. Absolutely.
Like we are exactly facing the problem that there are Czech drivers working for Czech salary, moving or shifting goods through Germany, and German the truck drivers they are like pissed about the situation because like there are complaints between them because the salaries are different.
Cedric?
Yes, you will take what I will say as a joke, but for me, I can say that this is not an issue. There will be soon no more truck drivers, in fact. So there is no problem around salaries with truck drivers because automation is right. It's a long way.
It's a high probability, but it's not certain.
No, it's a little joke around this thing, but we must see this kind of shit coming in this kind of problem because when I see this point, there is a lot of things that will be in fact solved in some ways with automation. This is not so bad, in fact, but always, in fact, all the Czech drivers and German drivers at this moment will be all hungry for that. And we need to see that coming also.
I agree in general perspective, but I think saying like you will be replaced by robots is not actually the problem which will solve the strikes of truck drivers. Right? Striking.
Just a, I think maybe factual note that is, it's not a technical problem, it's a legal problem to replace truck drivers by robots because it's going to take a really long time to make that legal. That's just my.
We're actually having tests in Sweden with this right now.
Sorry?
We are having tests in Sweden doing this right now, from southern part up to Gothenburg.
Yeah.
So it's happening.
Also here in Catalonia, there is a test for fast driving, autonomous fast driving.
Oh, see?
But
Yeah.
legally it take 10 years at least.
We're pushing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as much as you can promote like using train instead of cars or instead of plane, I think you can do the same with this issue. Okay, when you have to move merchandise around Europe, maybe you can like promote using trains instead of cars instead of trucks, so you don't have this problem.
Magnus?
Yeah, I think one thing that we need to consider, because this is getting or becoming a problem in Sweden, is that, well, two things. First of all, the railroad system is in a dire need of restoration, and the problem is that they are not being restored or fixed as well as they should be, is that it's getting kind of crowded. There are a lot of trains going, and both goods and personal transportation. So even if we do promote more train, we need to see the capacity also. Stockholm, Gothenburg, which is kind of the normal train going because it's a major cities in Sweden. It's really crowded. So it's not just about moving to one transportation to another, from one to another. It's about capacity as well.
Then you probably have to upgrade your infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was surprised many years ago when I, for my first time, visited the UK, that actually what I have seen there was like traveling by car is the cheapest form. Then going by bus is the second cheapest, and then going by train was the most expensive from these three. And from my point, it was like, it just doesn't really make sense, right? For devastating our environment, just because, like, for us individuals, when we are making our decisions that are based on economics, which is quite logical, like we're making a reverse to what we should really do as a society. And I have seen many campaigns like political campaigns of political parties in the Czech Republic saying, oh, this political party is going to raise taxes on transportation, so bread is going to be more expensive. Like, I have no sympathy for that. So bread that is going 200 kilometers is going to be more expensive. I really have no sympathy for that. So buy your bread that is like from your local bakery that is maybe more expensive than the one that is made by United Bakeries, which is a huge company. But I really have no sympathy for that. Why are we devastating our planet by making economical decisions that are based on the situation that is created by the politicians by setting the taxes and everything like that. So we as politicians should set the taxes in a way, and this is where my green perspective goes into play, in a way that reflects the harm to the environment. And if it's harmful to travel for bread to travel 2,000 kilometers, I have no sympathy for that the price is going to be huge.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, in that sense, what you need to consider is not just continental Europe. I think it's quite short distances to everything. I mean, it's really close everything. And northern part of Sweden, 100 kilometers is a normal, distance that you go to work every day. That's normal. 100. So I mean, it's a little bit different perspective. And of course, if we say that we're going to put like 10% tax extra on fuel, because we do have a lot of taxes in Sweden. It's more than 50% of the price that is taxes, and they're like, well, we're actually living here. Can you stop punishing us just because we want to live in the north, not in the central Stockholm or Gothenburg or whatever? So we need to have that aspect into this as well. When we look at transportation in Sweden, it really is a complicated question. I understand your reasoning. I'm absolutely for it, because yes, we should actually work with creating local businesses and local supply of the demand that is there. But also, it's not just about getting the bread to your breakfast table. It's about getting yourself from your breakfast table to your work, for instance. Which, yeah, and you say, well, move closer to work. Of course you can, but that's not always an option.
No, but I stand corrected and say, I'm sorry for my comments on home working. It's probably the solution for Sweden.
Unless you work for something that you physically have to be somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah.
Take it with
So
a grain
did
of salt.
Oh, Francois, sorry.
Just a short comment. It just I think can't think about it alone. Okay, so because it has so much consequence, you can't really imagine. So I think it has to be like coordinated with I don't know, a national job on national program, or maybe some basic income program. One without the other has not much sense, I think.
Yeah, it's a complex question. You can't just
Yeah.
pinpoint one and say, okay, we're going to fix this one, because it touches so much other.
I mean, the whole society is built around that being a fact, that it's easier to go by car. So it would be very brutal, like very hard if we just change everything from scratch, I think.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if we talk about automated trucks, we can also talk about automated cars, and the fact that eventually we will have all cars driving by electricity, hopefully, which means that it will be much more of an environment friendly going by car that is electric, but still, of course, we do have the pollution with the rubber tires and stuff like that. So I mean, it's not perfect. Yeah, and the battery isn't producing all these cars to start with. I'm still voting for teleportation, but that's not happening yet. So
have you seen Star Trek?
Yeah.
They solved it already.
Yeah. So it's on its way.
Yeah, Cedric.
For one time, I will disagree around teleportation. But Star Trek has phones, speaking computers, so maybe. But in fact, yes, when I spoke around asteroid mining, it was around the issue of the green problem of electricity and car and so on, because you need to make the batteries, and the batteries is not as green as we think, because there's not fossil fuel, but there is not fossil, but limited resources.
Yeah.
In fact, and this is not in our country that we are mining, and we have a problem around that, because it's a Chinese stock, an Australian stock, and we are not in a way that we can be autosufficient. We will be dependent on that for other countries. So, as François said earlier, we really need to think some change as a whole thing. We need to rethink our society, how we want to live. And in fact, I just interject about cars and automatic cars, because even if it's automated, it's only 1 or 2% transport. It's not a global transport system. It's very easy and individual, but it's not a kind of efficiency, in fact.
No, I mean what you are sacrificing is the personal transportation is one end, and the common transportation is the other end. You will sacrifice that you need to go to the airport or go to the bus or go to the train station, which means that you can't really go from door to door anymore. So that's a sacrifice you do depending on which mode of transportation you do.
In fact, it's what we are arguing about in France, since the road limitations go from 90 to 80 kilometers per hour.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the main persons who are served by this law is the people in the not in the cities, the rural environment, because they are long distance, they are far from stations, they are less public transportation access, and they are very armed by this kind of things. And yes, this is the compromise between personal liberty and the whole population.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, can we then move to the next point? The last in transportation. Lines, no borders. Oh, sorry. Lines, no borders. Integration of Trans-European Transport Network and Pan-European corridors into broader Eurasian network, promoting ETC as standard. Silk Road as potential to connect Asia by railway and reduce overseas shipping emissions while maintaining reserved stance against Chinese and Russian expansionist policy.
Yeah, if I can throw my ideas or thoughts into this directly, uh, railway to Asia sounds like a fantastic idea until you see how many containers one ship carries from China.
Mm-hmm.
That train should actually be like from China to Europe without non-stop, just a long chain to at least come near that kind of volume.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, what was that?
How many containers there is on one container ship compared to how many trains you have to put on the rail to actually replace that train or that ship. Yeah, there are literally thousands of containers on one ship, and even if it takes them 3 months to go by boat or 2 months or whatever, I would say one month. If it isn't time crucial, uh, there is no really way, no perfect way or a good way to get rid of that boat, because it just, the capacity is so enormous. Um, I actually was to the naval, or well, the museum here in Barcelona a few days ago, and they have models of these ships, and I was like trying to count how many there. I mean, just on deck they are stacked like 8 or 9 high, and then you have about the same amount under deck, and they are, I think it was 20 in side to side on the boat, and then about, yeah, well, I think it was 30 or 40 in length. So it's just one of those rows is one train.
Wow.
So it's impossible
Alex
to
and
just.
Mikuláš then.
Yes, I also question Silk Train is a more or less propaganda project of the Chinese government, and of course the only effect may be that the transportation time is shortened, but from ecological reasons it's not really a good project. We have other problems with the ship transport, especially the fuel, cause the container prices. They have too many too much capacity. On the container ships, the prices are down. They need very bad fuel for the environment with the ship. So we had to think in this kind more about more sustainable ship transportation. Perhaps there exists only modern container sailing ships, yes, which are not really slower than the modern ships. So of course I don't think that we should agree something about Silk Train.
What we can use it for is to get rid of the air freight, because we do have planes now going from China to Europe. Then we can. It will take longer time by train, but it's much.
2 days.
Yeah, 2 days, and today you can order things from China and have it here in your hand in 3 days or so. So
Okay.
That's the possible angle on the Silk Road.
Mikuláš, Marcel, François.
Well, just maybe a comment. I think the capacity would not be that big problem because that's true that there are a lot of containers in the ship, but on the other hand, the way to Asia is quite long, so the railway will be long. So I think it could work. Otherwise, at least the Chinese, they would probably not build it. They would expect that it cannot work at all. The question is like, should we support it or not? And what does it mean? This expansionist policy, like.
Yeah, Mark
Shall
is
we-
also commenting on that, like if
Yeah.
we should include it in this context. Like, isn't it too aggressive to put into transportation that we hate Russia? Like,
In fact, when you
Do not hate Russia.
you listen at Trump
No,
and
only
saying
Putin, I know.
Europe is an enemy, you can say anything.
yeah, you're on the line. Okay, so
Like I think it's a bit a problem if, for example, China like hires a port in Greece for I don't know how many years, 99 or something like that, for a certain price because at least it somehow redefines the strategical balance here in Europe and in our neighborhood, and we should be probably more careful about it. Maybe we need something to control the investments.
Marcel, that's
Yeah,
François.
I basically just wanted to reiterate what I have said as a reply to the ship is going to get a huge load of containers. I think our responsibility as politicians is actually reflect uh, what the impact of the environment is. So if the ship actually has a huge impact to the environment, which it has, it should be proportionally to that heavily taxed for actually like going and we can discuss like which way, but going and having the impact to the environment. But by having that huge load, it means only a tiny fraction for one particular item that it actually carries, right? And that makes the market actually even and fair. And if and companies will going to decide on if they want to ship it by ship or train or plane, and they take the economical impact for themselves into the account.
Right, but the prices did not reflect the cost for environment.
That's what I say. We as politicians are responsible to set the rules that they do reflect.
François?
I think you can go further and also think about maybe you don't need all those ships, right? Maybe if you like produce what you need, like back around your home and your cities, maybe it will become cheaper too. So you can maybe go in this way and try to promote one of those transportation ways and promote also like relocating jobs and employment. I think it has to go both ways. I'm not sure.
Yeah, if I can shortly react, I think it's inherently included in that because if it's too expensive to send it, that it becomes cheaper.
It's
to
produce it,
locally.
yeah. But I wasn't sure it could be enough. Like maybe you have to raise like a lot to make the company realize it's cheaper too.
Oh, companies are,
I don't know.
I think,
Maybe you have to also promote it
effective in deciding what makes the most profit for them.
Okay, so are we finished with the transportation, Magnus?
Yeah, I just want to give some perspective because while you were talking, I was looking at how big ships really are. And it says here that yes, bear with me. 90% of all non-bulk cargo worldwide is transported by container ships.
Of what?
Non-bulk, for instance, oil or so anything that can fit in a container. So that is transported by container ships. And the largest modern container ships can carry up to what's called 21,000 TEUs. TEUs is a 20-foot equivalent unit, so a container of 20 foot. So I just calculated the length of those containers one by one, after one each other. It's 129 kilometers long. So if you have trains going, that's one ship. That's one ship. So if you have those trains, it's 129 kilometers long. That's one ship. And you're going to replace 90% of the non-bulk transportation. That was worldwide, of course. This is China to Europe, so maybe it's just 10%. I don't know, but still, there will be a lot of trains on that railroad. That's for sure. I guess it's not okay with just one track.
You're on the backing what I said.
Yeah. So I just because everything that we discuss, we really need to see the scale of things, because that's generally an issue with the green movement. They are like, oh, we can use solar. Yeah, you can, but maybe not replacing 80% of the energy use in the world, because we can't really use that many.
I didn't pay Magnus for backing my claims.
Nicolas?
It was just my comment. I'm not really a member of Chinese government responsible for this project, and so maybe we should ask him, because if they have not counted this before, then they are doing the planning in very bad way.
Maybe they are thinking about the flight cargo.
Yeah.
In not the bulk or the boats.
But perhaps I think there are politicians who say, oh, we can replace the container ships. Politicians which have never counted. But,
and then they don't realize there's a mountain in between, so the train has to go really steep up and down. That doesn't work either, because it's too heavy and stuff like that. So, and then they have to build really big tunnels. It's going to be really expensive.
You use big bombs and explosive mountains.
Yeah.
All that.
Or maybe the first train just have a drill in the front.
Oh, we use that in
Eventually it will be through,
Great Britain.
This is fun. That's kind of difficult.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil the fun. So, are we
Party
finished with the
pooper.
transportation?
not really. We have to. The working group have to rewrite.
So we are.
So we're still.
To do?
Lines okay, we're in lines no borders. Okay. I have one point for transportation.
Okay, like adding. So what is it?
It's just more like getting feedback from this group than actually proposing something, because I have no idea what kind of support that potentially can have. But I travel a lot across Europe by car, and I can see the very different systems of tolls for using highways, or roads, and tunnels, anything you can think of. And I'm wondering about one particular thing, which is some countries like Germany, they don't really have tolls for personal cars, for highways.
Yes.
Some countries like Czech Republic have a vignette. You put a sticker on your windshield, and you can go wherever you want. And some countries like Spain, France, Italy, I believe, have a system of tolls for the basically a kilometer because they have those gates. And as a pirate, I can see a problem with such kind of approach because it's massive surveillance by design. Right? Even countries like Hungary and currently also Slovakia
and Sweden
as well, have a like you buy a vignette basically, but you don't have to put a sticker anywhere because you have cameras everywhere and they scan your registration plate. And if you're in the register that you paid, you're fine. If you're not, then well, you get a fine. So as a pirate, I have a huge problem with this kind of system because it's massive surveillance system by design. And as a person who cares about environment and about what is causing the harm to the environment, should proportionally pay taxes or like for harming the environment. I don't really see the like passenger transportation as the huge contributor to the harm and let's say the damage, for instance, the damage of the roads, because it's most likely the huge trucks that make the damage. For one truck that goes on the highway, you can send, I don't know, maybe 10,000 passenger cars that cause the same amount of damage on the road. Then I don't really see a reason for massive surveillance on citizens that has no real reasoning, because there's no reason to surveil citizens just because they want to travel across cities. So my question here is like, what is your feeling about that?
Magnus, and I'd
Yes.
like it
Yeah,
to
a
make
short
a really
reflection.
brief. Yeah, we can
It's not
put it
about
to
the traffic at
working
all.
group.
It's a political issue. They want to make a statement. In Sweden, we have two areas where we have tolls. It's in Stockholm and in Gothenburg. It's more like you should not take your car into the center of the city.
Yeah, I know I wasn't.
That doesn't help because people are like, okay, I have to pay a small amount, and sure, it doesn't cost me more than an ice cream. I don't care, or a cup of coffee, and they see the necessity instead of the cost as their driving force.
Right.
So it's more like sending a message through a political decision saying that we are actually doing something for the environment, rather than saying that we are actually we're actually doing something.
May I have a small reply to that?
Yeah, well, I mean,
the short reply is, I think we should make a difference between regulating traffic in the city, which is the Stockholm regulation, and traffic between cities on the highways, which was my point.
Yeah, because they are just making political points with this. It's we can see it statistically in Stockholm. It doesn't. In the beginning, it lowered, and then eventually it was up to the same levels. So it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. May I just ask if you could either reply really briefly or just say whether your party is for this to be discussed by the working group, like
Yes, of course. I only want to mention. Okay, with this mass surveillance, the Maut system for LKW transportation, Germany, as we have also a lot of discussions in the Pirate Party Germany. And especially at first it would say, no, this data will never use for other purposes than to collect, and then we know, no, this data is also used by police. Other, criticize this, okay. But I only want to mention the problem is with Maut. You cannot have a European regulation. It is also a private property right. So you have a lot of streets which are financed private, and they finance them with Maut. So yeah,
Germany.
not only
Is
not in
that
Germany, no, not in
Sweden,
Some.
Denmark, the bridge, it's pretty much a similar situation.
Well, it's not a private bridge.
Yeah, it's owned
Private.
by a corporation that is founded by the Swedish and
Yeah, it was a
Danish.
it was a financial model to
Okay.
finance it.
Yeah.
I think we should think about data protection in this transportation area, perhaps not in this section. It belongs to data protection. It's my suggestion, but I don't see that we can have any solutions in the transportation section.
No, I mean like where I'm approaching is and I don't push this to be like clear. I want a program that is agreed by everyone, but I'm just more of a brainstorming here. Where I'm going is I think it should be banned to collect tolls from like citizens for personal use, like personal passenger cars. Just because like the country kind of like decides to do it because it inherits massive surveillance which we as pirates should be against.
If it's checked in real time, you mean? I mean, if you have a sticker that you change every month, that's a totally different thing.
Yeah, exactly. I meant.
But if you have tolls
in a way, like
tolls.
if you have toll gates.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have stickers, well, me personally, I don't see a reason why to have it, but that's fair from the point of view that it's not a massive surveillance problem, right? But if you have toll gates, if you have a system that registers every car that goes through and automatically puts it into a database, well, for me as a pirate, that's a huge problem.
Yeah. Because they will leak.
They will. Yeah.
And they have in Sweden.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You know what?
Good. Okay, so if you are satisfied, I suggest we move to the next point.
Okay.
If not, your problem.
I can speak about 10 minutes longer.
No.
So the common consensus is that there is no like real issue with
opposition.
No, there is. Sorry. I think it's a big issue.
No, I mean with banning.
Oh no.
Banning toll gates.
Banning toll gates because it's massive surveillance.
There's no issue with that.
No one has an issue with that in this room.
No.
No, so the working group will deal with it.
No one wants to ban toll gates.
You get.
Yeah, now I'm kind of confused, but
It's feedback back to the group.
Right.
So and it's in there. So.
Okay. So maybe it can be in the pad for the working group that.
Yeah, they will.
Might be one of the ideas to actually elaborate on, or is it?
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
We agree.
It's part of the text.
Yes.
That's how we are doing it for the second day already.
This is how we're working for the whole meeting.
Thank you, got on. Another next point is corruption. I think Marek translated, the Czech part of the program for corruption, but of course it's only a rough translation and applicable on national level. So I suggest we go through the points and maybe say if we want to apply them even on the European level, of course, if possible. So first one is pretty much stop political cronyism. All non-political positions in public bodies and publicly owned companies, especially their generously paid executive and supervisory boards, will be filled in open competition. We will prevent the profits from leaking into tax havens. We will force state companies to publish their contracts. Uncompromising exposure of corruption networks. Well, there is a really national one. I even crossed out the mention of chess. It's our main electric company, distributor. But I'm actually not sure about the translation for chronism. Sorry. Can someone help me?
I don't know what it is.
Chronic capitalism, no? What do you mean the expression chronic?
Chronism.
To be
Chronic, like
no, it's an expression. There is chronic capitalism that in Spanish would be capitalismo de compadres.
The brotherhood.
Brother, yeah, kinda brotherhood, yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
yeah, like endogamy, this kind of
well,
thing.
Yeah.
Tráfico de influencias.
Tráfico de influencias.
Like
Influence
trafficking.
trafficking.
Thank you,
yeah.
thank you. Well,
Maybe
I'm
we
not
have this
sure
as
whether
well.
this is
nepotism
actually
has been-
applicable on European level, because we can't really say that say to the state, partially owned state companies how they should elect their bodies. But yeah, Cedric.
We can use
In
his
fact,
words.
in France, we have a real issue with that around European Parliament with the Front National that employed some people with the money of the Parliament for their own purpose. So this is as a European model, but the European Parliament is very strong to break some legs. I understand to make money back. And they are suing the Front National in France for that. So maybe this is already in the parliament to go against this system. But if you want to fight this kind of system state by state, in fact, it's a state, it's a national issue. It's a national level that we need to discuss it.
Okay. Magnus?
I don't know if this has been raised, but a problem with open competition is that all the applicants will be visible to everyone, which is kind of the root of an open competition. But that means that anyone that is in a position where they don't want to show that they're actually looking for other work, they will immediately be excluded from these kind of positions. Either it's like someone running a company and they actually want to leave it because they're not satisfied with the company for some reason, then they might be punished for that in their current employment. So I wouldn't say it's easy. I wouldn't say it's an easy issue to solve. I do agree that we need to somehow show who has been interested in a specific position and show that it wasn't cronism that was at work, so that one specific person was more or less given a position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's true actually. Yeah, it's forcing them to open the positions to public and everyone, but it's not that the data and
All right.
the applicants will be visible. It's not about it.
All right, so it's more like this position is open and we are
Yeah.
taking applicants.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course, there is it's not that it will solve all the problems, because even if you open the position, then still you can somehow do it so that the specific person you chose beforehand, for example some friend of you or something like that, will be chosen based on the criteria you apply to the position, because
Yeah, and if the process itself,
like you have to have brown hair and brown eyes,
No, yeah, but
and the only one person like that is
Yeah.
applying the
yeah, but I mean, if the process itself it's not open, so you don't know which one are coming in and which criteria they are measured by, then it's quite hard to know that the selection was made from that point of view.
Yeah. Muriel or Marcel, did you
No, I
want
just
to?
wanted maybe just a little more on that. I just wanted to find out, like, if the whole process is not transparent, then well, it's
It's
like
a black
saying nothing.
box.
Like, you open it to anyone, you have 10 candidates, and then you choose your husband or wife anyway, and no one is able to actually object to it because it's not known what was the reason that you have chosen, and there might be objective reasons why someone who is close to you is the best, candidate for that very position, and yeah, very much what I wanted to say.
So I can only talk from the point of view of research positions, where you have to apply, and normally you need to have certain, so they decide what you should have and so on. And there are things you can do. Normally you put an external panel to decide which will be the person. So you make sure that they don't know the candidates. That is something you can do. And something else to make sure that it's not too specific, and you have to justify why you need exactly this profile, and it's not cannot be too narrow. So you can fight against that if it's public and you involve other organisms or other people into the process, I think.
Yeah, but then
It's
you actually do the process not transparent for the public, but transparent for this board or whatever you are, that is not personally responsible for the position itself.
But you could make it transparent.
Yeah, it's orthogonal.
Sorry?
It's orthogonal.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not incompatible, no? Maybe.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to the next point then. Property declarations of politicians and high officials with confiscation of the undeclared property. These people shall be prohibited to have anonymous property.
I think this actually is enforced in several countries. For instance, here in Spain, it's mandatory for us politicians to declare, to do a declaration of what we have, from bank accounts, how much money, cars, art, whatever.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
we are already applying it to ourselves, or at least our elected officials, like that we have public reviews of their property and even like income and stuff like that.
I think income sources is actually important.
Yeah. Can you write down income sources? So we agree this is good, and we want to have it there. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Cedric, I didn't see.
In fact, I see some summarization of this fact is privacy is for citizens, transparency is for politics.
Yeah, that's a good one. Write it down.
It's
Can you
not,
repeat?
it's
No,
not, it's not
I
mine,
missed that
but
one.
it was general idea floating in the airs.
Estaba escribiendo otra.
It's okay. Sharing is caring.
That's so bad, man.
I'm not putting
The
copyright.
Things. It's like maybe
Please
I
write
need
it
to
down
bring
yourself,
Yeah,
because we
can you
we
write
don't
it down,
hear.
please?
Yeah.
It's like this important thing that I said, and everyone agrees. Please note it down. Shit, this is especially what I missed. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I was writing down other things.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how this is gonna be received in Sweden. Absolutely, I do agree when it comes to affiliation with others. I mean, if you are a board member, it's not just about income, but also which positions you have
Yeah.
well, in business in general, which could be really important, so that anyone knows who you are talking to when they're talking to you, because we do have like serious issues with police that is actually involved in lobbyist groups in Sweden, and it's like they are being interviewed as the police, but then because we know that they are actually also lobbyists, we can hear that they are talking just the way that the lobbyist groups are talking. So this is kind of important, and so that's just one part. I'm not sure that I mean, as a politician, it's really complicated, because you do have a private side and an official side of things. I mean, you might have like wealth, of course, some do, and to state those values that you have. I mean, down to art sounds like weird to me. Of course, if you have stocks in companies, that's pretty much important, because then you know that things that you decide on can actually affect the value of these stocks, stuff like that. But I think it sounds really too much transparency. You really eliminating the private person and just making that person into an official person and only official person. We need to allow politicians to be private as well, so that they can actually be humans, not just politicians. So that is an important thing. I think Cedric, with these privacies for citizens, transparencies for politicians, I usually say that the more, the less power you have, the less transparency you should have. So even, I mean, if you're on a municipal level, that is not as important as if you're on a national level or in a EU level, because the more power you get, the more you can affect things around you and for others.
Did you say the more power you have, the less transparency?
No.
The less power you have,
The less power you have, the less transparent, the less
Okay.
transparency. Yeah.
Yeah.
You understand? Stop playing with me. Yeah.
Marcel, then Alex.
Yeah, I just I think these issues are perceived differently depending on from which country you are. We had significant corruption affairs in the Czech Republic that have never been solved, basically. And so we maybe perceive it a little bit differently because we have real problems with that. And for me personally, I have no problem with paying politicians more while getting more from them on the transparency side, and the part of being politician means more of getting rid of private privacy. The point in like being transparent on what your capital is, including not only stocks but also pieces of art and stuff, is when you get into a corruption affair, then you're getting some income that you shouldn't get, and you're probably going to buy something for that. So the way how it works, or why it is put this way, is you claim what your capital is before you became a politician, and you claim and then you like the public gets to know what your capital is after you're being like 5 years in the seat, and then like it doesn't really play, like your salary is that, and your wealth is now like 10 times more. Sorry, can you explain that? So that's pretty much, I think, what is behind that.
Alex, then Magnus.
Yes, but I think this transparency is only for politicians is wrong. Yes, it is for politicians, but it is also for private persons, for private companies. Yes. And there are a lot of issues where transparency is important. And we have it often that this argument is used. We want to see some treaties, and we don't get these treaties because they are private issues, and we never can prove it. We know this problem for transparency. And in effect, okay, Sweden, the incomes of every person are really transparent. Perhaps
Yep.
this is too much. Can discuss it, but especially the American president have to declare their incomes and so on. Trump didn't do that correct. Yes. So there are also existing rules for politicians to be transparent what their incomes are. Yes, but I think for me, this is a big discussion we will not have here. In any case, we have to find a balance between privacy and transparency.
Magnus, then Francois.
Yeah. One concern that I see when we not only expect transparency, but demands transparency, is that people that doesn't feel comfortable with that level of transparency choose not to be a politician, which means that in general, people that have been working and building up a fortune of some sort, and they do not want to expose that, will not feel like they want to be in the part of a politician. And that means that in some ways we will be excluding people from being politicians out of the demands that we will put on politicians. And in the long run, it could end up being that we don't get the politicians that we should be having, but rather the ones that we are, the ones that is just fine with the attitude that I don't have anything to hide. Everything has something to hide, regardless, even if it's just the tiniest of things. That was just a reflection.
Yeah, you said, Alexander, that we don't need only transparency for politicians, but also from private companies. When you said that, you thought about the individuals in those private companies or only the corporates? Like
also a private company can be owned by an individual and society. But we have different type for the big companies based on the capital companies. We have transparency regulations also on EU level and national level, but a lot of companies which are owned by single persons or families, which before we have this regulation. So it's a little bit, have to think about that. Yes.
You finished, Francois? Yeah, Muriel de Martel.
Yeah, well, I think just to know that to a certain, I mean, it is already happening that we have So people running are people that are already comfortable with having like a public persona somehow, because we maybe have very capable people who don't want to be as exposed, let's say. So this is already happening a little bit. It's just that we already have the politicians that, the people that have a certain, personality, maybe that's already going on.
Marcel?
Yeah, I think what Muriel said is true. Like we already have kind of like have the problem. I don't think that this is going to make it like really worse.
It was just a reflection that it
Yeah.
might happen.
Yeah.
It's really hard to know.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. I like this. This is one issue. Let's say that the level of transparency that you have to impose on yourself is much bigger than you lose privacy. The other level is how we pay politicians, and like in the Czech Republic, for instance, if like the parliamentarian has like I don't know, like 3,000 or 4,000 euros per month or something like that. If you compare it to what middle manager like gets in a company, in an enterprise, in a commercial sector, it's not really anything really huge. And when you compare it to that, you want your members of the parliament to be actually like the best people from the society, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are the top management of the country. If you put it on like corporate terms, then you're not really paying them well, which means in other ways that you get only two types of people there, which is well, three. One is those who really like want to do it and they don't care about the income. Others is two type, which is one is, oh, this huge income is going to make me rich, right? You don't want these people to be there. And the other, like, they don't care because their income is like 10 times above that, and they don't really care. And you honestly often are not really interested in that type of people as well, so, because they have other interests of being in the parliament. So I think there are more limiting factors than this. And this one, I think, is marginal.
All right.
Okay, I think we all agree that it's good, but there was the mention that you don't know about the position of your party, right? So, do you think we should rather omit it, or do you think we can go with it and maybe you'll ask within the party, and then we can omit it in the next round or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's okay to have it there for now. I think some of the points there is gonna be an issue, but sure, let's see what our member says about it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Then there's transparent public procurement. Among other things, all information about the procurement has to be available in machine-readable form. The company's chain of ownership must be transparent. Yeah. Like, good, everyone agrees.
I just want to add one thing to that,
Mhm.
because this is a thing that we have issue with in Sweden. It's also good to see the relation between the orderer and the supplier. If there are like relationship ties somehow, or family ties or stuff like that. It's not just about the company's chain of ownership, but also on the other side, because we do have some serious issues, especially in Gothenburg.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
for instance, a politician got a shitload of bricks delivered to his home after they closed the deal. It was like, ooh, where did that come from?
Clever one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will ask the minutes taker to please include what Magnus said.
I didn't
Yeah.
get it, so did you get it?
I get it.
Okay, blacklist of companies involved into corruption, banning them from public procurement. I don't, yeah, okay.
Sounds great. I don't know. If someone is already doing corruption, don't let them play anymore.
Yeah.
I just have a comment that it should probably be a time limited ban, not forever.
Okay.
Redemption is possible.
Maybe they can pay a huge fine,
Redemption
like
is
larger
possible.
than what.
You can redeem yourself as a company.
I mean, like, you serve your time, right? Why not?
If we did it for minutes.
No.
Yes, we do.
Even for
We have parents.
A little comment about that, the blacklisting companies. Maybe it's not only blacklisting companies, maybe it's required to blacklist people, specific people involved on the corruption.
You mean from the government or from
No,
the
from the,
companies?
for instance, if a company participates in a corruption affair, it's not the company itself who is corrupt. It's they are the person.
I disagree with that actually. It's the company that is corrupt because they failed in putting a structure in place that would prevent
Okay, but maybe
happening that.
okay.
And they are those who should be punished for that.
Okay, you can punish a company.
Those people in charge will be kind of
Prosecuted.
punished by those companies because they will be.
But also by law.
Yeah, but I don't think that they should be punished really by law. They would be punished like by the market.
But they will be punished by the corruption laws.
Yeah, they should.
I mean, it's not like now you're naughty, don't do that again, and they continue working in that company. That person that was involved in the corruption would of course be punished because there was.
But by existing laws, you don't have. I think like
It does exist.
I think there is no issue to solve. Like
It's already.
No, but for
I think
example,
it's already in place. Like if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
if you're
That's what we
bribing
say.
an official, then
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
that's what we're saying.
yeah. So
We
what I-
agree. We agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I mean, we don't have to
No.
create redundant regulations.
No.
Okay.
But what we want to do is put on top of that, the company itself should be
Yeah.
for a
So
while
we
punished
offer
for
them-
this.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Next one. Oh, sorry, Cedric.
In fact, it's a discussion, so it's difficult to stop. But
I'm so excited
yeah,
about this
in fact, corruption is a game for some people, and the briber can be in fact in a risky position and can be hired again to make that kind of business if the company is not punished or sanctioned. They will continue, in fact, saying this is this person and this person is okay to take the risk.
Exactly. Yeah. That was kind of like my point. Like you cannot ban people from doing business with the government through a company, right? Because then you're putting actually the people in the risk. So while you have on one hand laws that ban like that make it illegal to bribe officials, that's fine, and then you ban the company from say for 5 years to make a contract with the public sector, and that's fine as well, and pretty much kind of like solve the problem. You should not ban the people from doing business in the future because they are punished already. Double punishment is not what pretty much what.
Cedric?
In fact, it is really silly, but as using pop culture, and there will be some spoilers. in How You Met Your Mother, we do not know the job of one of the characters during all the series, and in fact, the job of this character is that he takes the risk on himself from this kind of problem. So if people imagine this kind of things, it exists, no more, no less.
Okay.
Good example.
So we'll move on. Subsidies to political parties shall be paid only if their finances and activities are 100% transparent, including the lobby register, accounting, and the property declarations of their politicians. Wow.
It's great.
Yeah, it's hardcore, but
Yeah.
good if it ever came to
Can write hardcore
Working.
things into the blog.
yeah. Let's be hardcore.
I will not discuss how practical all this is.
Yeah.
And by the way, only in Germany, the subsidies for political parties gains a lot of transparency. Everything is checked by the German parliament. But okay, could be more.
Cedric.
In fact, this point raised a question for me: is what is a politician in this? What the meaning of the politicians in this question? Because
Like
when we
officially
see
elected
I mean,
Yeah.
so
People-
I'm not a politician. He is.
he is politician.
Who is
But
politician?
I'm running for
elected.
election,
I'm
but
not.
I'm not elected.
But you're not getting paid, or you are?
Maybe I can elaborate on that,
Okay.
if I may. I'm not sure if it comes from the Czech program like that, but it reminds me
Yeah.
somehow. What we use is a term representative of the party, which includes elected officials, like elected politicians, members of the parliament, members of the local council, and stuff like that.
Elected party member.
And then party members who are in charge, which means like board and stuff like that.
So I am a politician.
Yeah, he is. If you are a board member, yes. Yeah. So that's
So even like,
that's
but we don't have it right now. I think like to this extent, we have a
Not to-
register of the but
we have no property declarations of the board members.
yeah, for example,
What do you have then? Sorry.
property declarations of our elected officials, like into the state and municipal levels, but
Okay.
not within the party. Like for example,
The
I am
board
paid
members,
by the
yeah.
party, but I don't have any declaration
Yeah.
like of income.
And,
I could, but no one enforces it.
yeah.
That's like the point. Yes.
Yes. So maybe for the intent to make it more not consumable, but to make it more acceptable by higher parties around Europe, maybe that would be elected
Yes.
politicians, because that
Mhm.
does really matter, right? Like we can argue if board members of a tiny political party that was just founded yesterday and has some new bright ideas is like the people that we want to be completely transparent, but elected politicians, well, that's it.
Yeah, you already gave them your vote, and they are representing you officially, so you should know who's paying them. Yes, Magnus?
But this is political parties, not individual politicians. As I see it.
There's the last sentence.
Property
in-
declarations of their politicians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. All right, I missed that.
Um,
But yeah, in Sweden we do not have any. Well, there are rules about if someone is donating more than 20,000 Swedish crowns, that is 2,000 euros about, then that has to be declared. Otherwise, per year. Otherwise, it's something that doesn't have to be registered somewhere. I guess that's the only thing that we have.
Marcel?
Yeah. So maybe again in the with the goal to make it more acceptable.
Yeah.
Maybe
Elected.
that would even we can even restrict it more to elected politicians on national and European level, or something like that. I mean, like, for instance, an elected representative in the Brno Council that does his like normal job, and in addition to that, he's in the council. It's like 2,000 crowns, which is what is it? So 50 euros, 80 euros. 50. Yeah. So per month. So probably there's no reason to torture that human being by filling out forms with property declarations and everything.
Yeah.
I think,
but for a member of a national parliament, well, we're probably discussing a completely different topic.
Yeah, because then you're like professional politician. That's your job.
Yeah, but I think this discussion is a little bit misleading because we have not clear every detail. This states only, the pirates will do something against corruption, and perhaps this fulfill the idea of a lot of voters. How we do this, it's very complicated. I don't want to write this in a program because this has to be done when we are elected or we are in the position to make some proposals to the parliament.
Okay, so you would omit the including the labor register, accounting and property declarations from the text. Okay. If it's written down, then the last one is Marek's proposal. Like it's not in the translation of the Czech corruption program, protecting whistleblowers.
Mm-hmm. It is in the program.
I see Muriel is showing me that we have it in the old CEEP, whistleblower protection law. Pirates advocate for general and comprehensive legislation to protect persons who expose issues that are in the public interest, such as cases of corruption, insider trading, blah blah blah, whistleblowers. So we already have it in the CEP, so I guess any discussion is redundant. Sorry, Marcel.
Was raising the hand.
Yeah, well, he was, but it's redundant, so.
No, it's not. I just wanted to say. So Alexander proposed to omit the parentheses, basically, right?
Yes, no, but in this connection with political parties, because lobby register is something.
Yeah.
For
So what I wanted to say again, with the goal of making this more acceptable, across parties in Europe, that might not be a bad suggestion, because even making just the political parties transparent is incredibly huge step forward.
Right.
I think you're stuck on the last point. We have moved on to the whistleblower part now. But yeah.
Yeah, I got stuck. Sorry.
Sorry, I missed that.
I support protecting.
Can you write it down, Marcel, into the pad?
Yes, please.
Muriel missed it.
No problem.
Cool, thank you. So that's it for the corruption part. And that means, actually, that we are at the last part, or yes, so to say, wrapping up everything we discussed today. Yeah, I will give you all awards immediately. And yeah, we need to now kind of maybe decide on how to proceed with the update and evaluation of the old CEEP, whether to do it now because in 45 minutes a lot of you will leave. And yeah, so any preferences or suggestions? Magnus Muriel Dario.
Yeah, I'm missing one really big point in this entire list.
Yeah.
We talked about it yesterday, and obviously it seems like we are the cause of this.
Yeah.
We have changed foot when it comes to legalizing drugs, and we think that this could be a really interesting question to have in the program, because I think even if Sweden is one of the slower in this decision. The weather is changing in Sweden. It's not just downpour anymore. So I would love to see a point saying that we should support legalization of all
Totally agree.
drugs.
And we should then establish a working group on that. And I think, well, of course, contact everyone, but really force Czech, Slovenian, and Swedish pirates to work on it because they are most active right now in it, I guess. Force them. Anyone can, join, but we are, I think, furthest in this because the Czech pirates are like writing the law already and discussing the European problem with some convention about drugs that's actually problematic for national legalization. So that might be something for the European issue and stuff like that. But Alex, don't think that I'm omitting. Yeah, Mikuláš, then Marcel.
Just a comment.
Sorry, I haven't
This convention is not the only international treaty discussing drugs. Like, for example, a couple of weeks ago we have discussed very general agreement with Australia, which also mentions some measures against trade with drugs. So in fact, I think it will affect more policies, and it is good to have it in the common program if it's our common policy.
Yeah. And I only want to mention that this is a big issue for the German pirates.
Okay, sorry, Marcel. Yes.
Yeah, I just had a factual question. What happens if you violate the treaty?
Nothing actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
Okay.
Ooh, sad.
but
Yeah,
exactly.
We'll ask the working groups because I think, well, they will actually know more and can cover it. Because I talked about it, with the leader of our legalization team, and I just have terrible memory, so I don't remember it. But I know that they are dealing with it somehow and would have some good input into it.
But invite an additional working group. I think in this topic I find in Germany a lot of people who are interested. It's not my.
Yeah, I said already that we will send it to everyone. Don't worry. I'm not excluding Germans. Really,
Not
trust
my
me.
specialty.
Trust me, I'm an engineer.
Okay.
These
Yeah,
fires,
sorry.
they don't want to violate.
Woo!
Cool.
Good for the Finns.
Mm.
One visit from me and you're legalizing.
Oh.
You should
Okay.
travel more.
Yeah. Morel.
I just wanted to comment on this, the position of parts of Catalonia. I think we don't have a clear statement on this. We discussed it very superficially at some point, and we included something like we want a referendum on this. So we want, population to be able to decide if we want to legalize or not. I'm not sure. I think we could have a discussion about this, so we could try to include it and then see what the members say.
I just visited you, so you'll probably legalize.
But I think research is saying this. I mean, at least I've been really. It's a topic that it's I think a really hot topic also from the research point of view. And I mean, since we are pro evidence-based policies, I'm sure that we have so many arguments to say that this is really not working and that we should do something else, that this is probably going to work.
Only one hint. Legalization does not mean that you can buy drugs in the supermarket.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, it could, but it's
Not
it's
that
not
it's
inherent.
Are you okay? So Marcel.
Not really.
It's Czech pirate living in Finland, Marek.
I just wanted to note on the evidence-based policies that the solely fact that drugs are so heavily criminalized, especially cannabis, means that there's literally no research in what is the impact of cannabis on human health and medical uses and stuff like that. So, in many respects, there's a lot of evidence missing actually to make the decision.
Dario?
It's not a proposal. It's a little warning. I must leave like in 5 minutes, so
And you'll take this with you, or?
I will take the screen with me, but not the mumble, not the microphone, because it is from here. So I need a volunteer to have the mumble connected and this microphone. Yeah?
Yes, because I don't have to go.
For the mumble people, there will be a little cat.
So let's see if it works, and if it doesn't work, then we need another volunteer.
So what will be discussed when they can't hear us?